Hello, sisters, and welcome to Go Solo Live. This is Jennifer Buchholz with Transform Via Travel. It's time to sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and enjoy my conversation with Jennifer Huber, otherwise known as Solo Travel Girl.
Welcome to Go Solo Live.
Don't you mean Go Solo Live? Have you ever been asked why on earth would you travel alone? Go Solo Live not only answers that question, but celebrates life as a midlife solo traveler. This is a safe place for women to come together to reminisce about their travels, encourage others to travel, and to dig into the real lessons learned from these journeys. Now join Jennifer Buchholz with Transform Via Travel as she and her guests share stories of the solo travelers of midlife women.
Today, I'd like to welcome Jennifer Huber, otherwise known as Solo Travel Girl. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hey, Jennifer. Thanks for having me.
It's easy when we both have the same name, right?
It is. I won't forget it.
I love it. Well, I'm so excited that you're on air getting to share some of your travel stories. And one of the things that I always like to dig into first is, how did your solo travel journey really start for you?
Well, I guess there's two parts to it, so to say. Obviously, growing up, every once in a while, there was that solo travel journey, but my first big solo adventure was going out to Yellowstone National Park by myself. I was 20 years old. I was in between college semesters, and actually a few years earlier, my mom had gotten 6 free airline tickets to go anywhere in the U.S. Because she had taken my 2 sisters down to Florida, and she got bumped off a flight, and then so she got 3 free tickets, and then coming back she did the same thing, so that we're a family of 6. And growing up, my dad was a school teacher, and he was the only one who worked in the family, and he also taught summer school, so we really never had true vacations. Our vacations were actually during spring break, driving down to Florida to see grandma. So we wanted to go somewhere west of the Mississippi because we'd never been there, so we chose Yellowstone, and I was just so amazed and in awe of the destination and of the national park. And that's a whole other episode, I guess, we can talk about. But in speaking to the people, the kids who are working there, I assume they're all like biology majors or science majors and whatnot. And I had this vision of going into communications and journalism, and they said, oh, like one girl's like, no, I'm a communications major. Another girl's like, oh, another business major. So I had it determined in my mind that I was going to go back there one summer and work. And eventually I did it 2 or 3 years later, 2 years later, I guess. And it was, once I was actually at the airport getting on the plane by myself, it was really the first time I was by myself other than going to college. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I getting myself into? I was kind of freaked out. And then when I got to Montana, this bed and breakfast picked me up, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm in this town all by myself. I don't know anyone. And I cried myself to sleep that night. And then the next day, the bed and breakfast people, they took me to the employer. They check in, and I'm like, my gosh, I don't know anyone. I'm not going to have any friends all summer, and it's going to be a horrible experience. And I was going to be working in the kitchen. I just thought it was going to be awful. But the first guy I talked to on the bus, 27 years later, we're still friends. And when we talk, we just pick up. I met so many friends that summer, and it was really a transformation. But then later on in my life, I started business travel for my job. And I was in London for the first time, and my schedule was just booked up with appointments. And I'm like, I have no time to go to Buckingham Palace. I have no time to see Big Ben. And I flew all this way because I was staying at a airport hotel, Gatwick Airport, which is actually convenient because I decided my last day I was going to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, hop on the tube, and go down to London at least, so I can say I saw Buckingham Palace and I saw these different sites and stuff. And then I was back to my hotel by 10 o'clock for my last set of appointments, business appointments. So from there, I just knew I kind of had to make the most of experiences and not miss out.
That sounds awesome. So you really recognized the opportunity and created the space so that you weren't missing out on those opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it just seems so silly, and I would be mad at myself if I didn't take advantage of those opportunities that I was given. And plus, with business travel, yes, it is business and it is work, but if you have the opportunity to do it, make the most of what you can. within your company's guidelines, I should
True
say.
statement. But
Yes.
it is something that I talk to a number, especially women business travelers, but not
Mhm.
just them, a number of them who travel for work and really don't leverage that experience. They don't leave their home or their hotel while
Yeah.
they're traveling. And I know over my career, I've been given opportunity to travel for work. And I truly have always made that part of my negotiation of travel of I get extra time. If you're taking my personal time to travel for work, then I get work time for some personal experiences while I'm traveling as well.
Absolutely. And if you're traveling to an international destination, a country you've never been to, it really is beneficial too if you're going a couple days earlier, because then you can understand the culture a little bit more, and you can take in some of the sights and the things that the treasures that they value, so to say. So when you're having those meetings or meeting with people, you have a connection and you understand a little bit more about what they appreciate about their country and what they love about their country. So yeah, I definitely agree with that concept. And I did that on a trip to Brazil a few years ago, and that was actually on the recommendation of our representative, because I've never been to Brazil before, and I always hear different things about it. That's a scary place or, or whatnot. But was able to go a few days early and take all sorts of tours and Sugarloaf Mountain and the Christ the Redeemer, and just really appreciate and understand the culture more and eat some of the food and drink some of the adult beverages. So when it came time to, for business meetings and whatnot, they just don't see me as some American coming in and say, "Hey, hand me over your business," that I'm actually trying to build a relationship with them and connect with them on a genuine level.
Absolutely. It demonstrates some respect and appreciation that you're willing to, in a way go above and beyond. But every person wants guests to their area to have an enjoyable time there. So it also creates opportunity for more casual conversation that if you don't know what kind of small talk to have with
Mhm.
someone from another country because you're not sure of those connections, the easiest concept is where should I go eat? Or what can't I miss? What's within walking distance of where we are right now that you recommend I go see?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's a great talking point. And, I think, well, that's one of the benefits of solo travel is, when you're paired up with someone else, when you're traveling, you kind of just stick to that person or stick to your group of friends or family, whoever you're traveling with. And you're not getting out of your own little bubble, so to say. So you're not engaging with really what's going on around you. You might be on like a walking tour or something, but you're really not paying attention to the guide or paying attention to what's happening around you. You're just maybe paying attention to your own people. And definitely, yeah, if you're traveling solo, you're probably more apt to ask someone, where should I go eat, or what shouldn't I miss, and things like that.
So when I travel solo,
Mhm.
one of the things that I love to do, I like to look for trips that allow me to scuba dive. That since I started diving, I love to do that.
Oh,
But
awesome.
but if I don't do that, I love to take a cooking class wherever I go. And I've had the chance to take a paella making class in Spain.
Awesome.
So what are some of the things that if you get the chance, you would not want to miss doing that when you travel?
Well, definitely cooking, and I have taken some cooking classes as well, because it's something that you can kind of relive the memory once you come home, or you could also share the experience with your friends or family once you're home. Back in the day, I guess you can say we had the old slide projectors, and you pull those out, and here's my vacation. Maybe I'm a little bit older than you.
No, no, you're not
Okay.
at all. And the
We're much closer.
groans because it's
Yes.
so funny, if we're sharing stuff on social media now
Mhm.
and you can share via your blog,
Yes.
people are able to experience that to some degree and they can appreciate it. But you realize more and more how much it just doesn't matter if they're not there.
Right.
They just don't have
Yep.
the same appreciation. They can't.
They
Like
don't have that
it's
connection, maybe, or
right.
yeah. Yep. Even though it's like the most spectacular thing that you've ever seen. And no, but at least like with Instagram, I guess it's kind of like the slideshow in some way, that they could but it's at their own pace. It's at their own leisure, and whether they want to like it or love it or, or not.
And they can decide when to stop,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. They can press the pause button or the walk away button without offending
Exactly.
anyone.
And I think we're
Um,
probably more selective about what we put out there as well. It's not every single picture on the roll.
yes, yes. It's funny. I just celebrated I know it's funny to say this, but I just celebrated my uh, 10-year Twitterversary. I've been on Twitter for 10 years in November. And Twitter obviously reminded me of that. But when I look back, and I was an early adopter to Instagram as well, and when I look back to the original images that I was posting and on there, I'm like, oh my gosh, that was like a horrible photo. Or yeah, I've seen some improvement in my photography skills as well, but being more selective and not putting up the whole camera roll or not posting every 5 minutes, so to say. Appreciating the moment and realizing that it's okay to post and share that experience later rather than right there, right at the minute.
Well, and the game has really changed as more people have adopted these tools as well. So,
Hmm.
what was acceptable when things first started 10 years ago is it's just a different game now.
Yep, totally different game. Totally different game. But yeah, getting back to your original question about what not to miss, but yeah, culinary or like food walking tours, I look for those as well. I went to Vietnam last year. Thanks to Twitter, I actually won a free airline ticket through Turkish Airlines to fly anywhere in the world where they fly. I know, isn't it crazy?
What?
Crazy. They were launching new service out of Miami, and they said, where would you want to go? And I had said something about how I wanted to go to Prague and embrace my grandfather's heritage because I can't hug him anymore. And I was one of the winners. They had a winner each day of the week. And then I'm like, well, do I need to use the ticket as to where I said I would go? Because I would still love to go to Prague. And they said, no, you can go anywhere in the world. I'm like, wow, well, Vietnam, I've always wanted to go there, and it's halfway around the world, and that's a lot more expensive to get there than it is to Prague. So I ended up going to Vietnam for 4 or 5 nights. I just stayed in Ho Chi Minh City in Saigon, and I went by myself, and I stayed at a Asian style hotel, meaning Asian tourist style, meaning there weren't a lot of Americans there, if any Americans there, but all the staff spoke English. They had a Vietnamese breakfast, they had American breakfast option. But yeah, every day I booked a different tour. I used Intrepid for most of them, but then another one I used Saigon Street Eats, and they specialize in street eating tours. The wife is Australian, the husband's Vietnamese. She had a journalism background, and they met, and she decided to stay there. But it was awesome because when the husband picked me up, he's like, "Well, you're the only one. We usually do this tour by taxi, but we do another tour by motorbike. So do you want to take a motorbike?" I'm like, oh, heck yeah. So we'll get back to the
No
motorbikes a little bit.
way.
But yeah, so I'm on the back of a motorbike. He's on the back of another one. Like, we basically had to find these taxi motorbike people. And we went to these markets, and he's showing me and explaining everything to me. And he showed me a century egg. Not that I ate one, but showed me a century egg and all sorts of food he was gathering along the way and collected it. And then at the end, we went to this park where we could actually enjoy it all. And he explained more about the history, and it was just a great one-on-one experience. And I had real authentic pho. I thought it was always called pho,
Right.
pho,
I know.
as you know, yes. So yeah, that was just a terrific experience. But getting back to the motorbikes, I guess this was my third day there, and someone had warned me about. It was specifically Evelyn Hannon, Journeywoman.
Okay.
Journeywoman.com. She's the founder of that, the grandmother, travel blogging and whatnot.
Yes.
But she warned me about the Saigon Shuffle before I went. I'm like, what? What's this? I don't have time for this. Like, she sent me a video link, and so I'm watching, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with Vietnam, and specifically Saigon, but there's millions and millions of motorbikes, and they don't stop for people crossing the street. Like, even though it's a red light, the crosswalk, they don't stop. So what you're supposed to do, and it did work because I did it several times, is you just step out slowly into traffic. Now, not if a truck is coming or a car, just motorbikes. And they go around you like it's almost like you're a moving rock in the river and the water is flowing around you. All these motorbikes are just like zipping around you, and you're just walking slowly at a straight path across the street. And Oh my gosh, it was like an adrenaline rush doing it. But the first time that I had to do it, I was getting ready to cross the street. I got to my hotel and I was walking down to the grocery store to just get like water and provisions and whatnot for the room. And I'd read about this happening, but a Vietnamese woman, she saw I was trying to cross the street and that I was hesitant. And without saying anything, she actually got between me and the traffic and walked me across the street. And then when we got to the yellow line, she got on the other side of me and walked, across to make sure I was across the street. And then I said thank you, and I think I said it in Vietnamese, which I can't remember what it is, but she just looked back and nodded, and I thought that was very cool. So it was a thrill being on the back of a motorbike. After all day, I was crossing the street through the motorbike. But the ironic thing is that the last night I was there, maybe I was a little cocky or something. I was going back to the grocery store to pick up souvenirs because I think grocery stores are a great place for souvenirs because it's cheaper than actually buying them in the souvenir shop, so to say. Food's great that you can bring back. And I was crossing a side street, and I had my head turned to oncoming traffic. This guy was turning onto the street going the wrong way, and he ran over my foot and hit my leg, and he kept on going. And I'm like, I just had to laugh. I mean, I'm like, oh my gosh. I know it was a serious situation. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just got hit. Of course I had to get hit because it's my last day. And I was getting cocky and whatnot. And I just laughed. And I looked down on my leg. Lucky there was no blood or anything. But I had like this big goose egg on my leg already and big bruise. And
Oh my gosh.
yeah. So
That sounds like an advanced game of Frogger.
Exactly. It's exactly an advanced game of Frogger. That's what I felt like. Frogger live, trying to hop across the street, but you only get one life.
Right? Right? And
Yeah.
oh my goodness, that is quite something. And so then you experienced it on the back of the motorbike as well.
On the back of the motorbike, and that was just amazing too. And you just get a different perspective. I mean, you get a different perspective when you walk through a town or when you're on a bus or a touring van or whatnot. But then, yeah, on the back of a motorbike, you're feeling more of the more part of the culture and the destination. And I mean, when you're stopped, if you are stopped for some reason, I mean, you're just riding right along next to someone else, and yeah, it's pretty wild.
No,
It's a
but
bit
that's
dangerous.
amazing. And when you're talking though about the food tour, I want to make sure we recap to that.
Yeah.
I think even if they weren't original locals, they're locals now, and getting that understanding and sense of the food scene in a country and the why, and understanding how to pronounce pho, because I
Yes.
still look at it and my head says pho and I have
Yep.
to remind
Three
myself.
friends call it faux, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But same thing, actually, when I was in Bogota, I did a food tour, and the gentleman was from Australia and had moved to Bogota and been there for 3 years. So you just get an entirely different sense and appreciation of why, not just what they cook, but why they cook it and why it's prepared in particular ways. And, we had the fortune as well to go through a market and got to try all their amazing fruits. So Colombia is one of the biggest exporters of fruits and flowers.
Oh.
And we actually got to see both. We were there on flower market day, and it was
But it's beautiful.
it was
Colorful.
astounding. A dozen roses for $4 or something like that. And
Wow.
it was so beautiful. But without the context, you can walk past something like that and look at it and think it's pretty. And then to have someone explain, Colombia is one of the biggest exporters of flowers around the world, and actually give you the deeper understanding, you get such a better appreciation for the place that you are.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what were your biggest aha moments when it came to food in Vietnam?
Well, that I liked it.
That's a good start.
That's a good start. Well, later that night, I took another food tour, and I probably should have scattered my food tours out. But yeah.
It doesn't always work out that way.
It doesn't always work out that way, exactly. But there are some things that, I don't know, like the frogs. When I learned about the frogs, they actually will skin them alive, and then they fry or grill the skin. And yeah, and then seeing skinned frogs on the grill. I didn't eat any in that. And to them, that's it's normal. There's nothing abnormal. And to me, that's not normal. It's abnormal, but there's
Sure.
nothing wrong with their culture. And just as there isn't anything wrong with my culture and what I choose to eat. But the Vietnamese iced coffee I really enjoyed, and that is prepared with it's not like a regular coffee, thank goodness, because I really don't like coffee. I do like the dressed up coffee, so to say,
Yes.
but it has that sweetened condensed milk in that, and it's poured over ice, so it's better than some of those other chain brands that we have here in the United States. So I really did enjoy that. Um, I also learned if I was going to be eating street food by myself, what to look for from the morning guide, from the morning tour. Basically, he said, if there's a lot of grease on the grill, and that it's good because it means that they're turning over a lot of food, so the food is going to be fresh. He pointed out which places that I could go get a beverage from and be safe that it's actually used with bottled water rather than tap water.
Ah,
Because being ill on the road is no fun, because I've had that. And yeah, I try and avoid that as much as possible, being careful what I eat. And just how social eating is and food is in Vietnam, and obviously in other cultures. Sometimes we in a hurry, and I'm not really thinking about what I'm eating.
right.
And meanwhile, it's more of an event. In Vietnam, they have these kind of short tables and short chairs and plastic chairs and that, and people sit down, and it's just an experience, a cultural experience, and it's more than just eating and getting nutrition.
Absolutely. And to make sure that we give it the time and space that it really does deserve, because it is more than just getting your sustenance.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I was there a week before Obama, so I kind of joke that I was there like laying the groundwork for him, but not really.
For sure.
For
Without a
sure.
doubt.
Yes, but the people I met, they did love Obama.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
Well, and honestly, for them to love the country is a good thing to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of that has to do with and I didn't realize this, but with trade, and if they wanted to trade with the rest of the world because of humanitarian issues, they had to make certain changes, and the government needed to make certain changes, and that included lifting that bamboo curtain on the internet. So basically, all the guides that I met, they learned how to speak English by watching YouTube videos and watching videos online. One girl, she loved The Big Bang Theory, so she thought it was appropriate to say bazinga every once in a while. Or my first day guide, he had a very distinctive way of speaking, and then after he said that he loved President Obama and that's how he learned to speak, was watching his speeches. He was actually not intentionally, because that's how he thought he was supposed to talk. He had that like dictation of as to how Obama speaks.
Sure.
So I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, they mimic that.
They mimic it, yeah. And just, it's very impressive how all of them, they didn't learn how to speak English. They didn't have formal training, I guess I can say. They learned by watching videos and watching our pop culture or interacting with tourists who were in the city. So I'm very impressed with that.
Absolutely.
And then they have a better understanding too about the country because of the internet being open.
Yeah, that does make a huge difference. It has created a much smaller world for us.
Yes.
Which
Absolutely.
is helpful, especially
Yes.
as we're traveling. So, as you share a lot of budget tips and tricks for traveling, do you have any, top of mind suggestions for people who are looking for, aside from winning a flight halfway around the world?
I know. I know. Utilize your social media. No. Yeah, you never know where opportunities are going to be coming about. As a solo traveler, a lot of times it is more expensive, I think, for us because they have the single supplement, so to say, like
Yep.
especially on cruise lines. There are some cruise lines who do cater to solo people because they recognize that it's just not fair, so to say, or it's to their economic advantage. Because I think there's more single people or solo people in the United States, anyway, than coupled up people.
Absolutely.
Groupon and Living Social, those are great places.
You've had good luck with using those tools?
Yeah, using those tools, and I usually forget about them, and then someone's like, "Well, why don't you check here?" Or I'll see someone on Facebook, someone will post, "Oh, I did this." I'm like, "Oh, that's a great idea." Especially for like dining certificates. I've used it for like attractions. If I guess I wouldn't be solo then, but I have given like a ticket to someone if it was like, if I had a 2-for-1 or something and I wasn't going to use the other one, I'll just give it to the person behind me in line, or I'll just ask around if someone needs a ticket, and that makes me feel good. So to say that I
Absolutely.
could share the experience with them. There's different websites. There's like Pomelo Travel. They post like airfare deals. I think it's Pomelo. They have
Okay.
a email database or email that goes out with different flight
That
fares
one
and
I've not
scheduling.
heard of. So I always love getting new suggestions.
Yeah, new tips. Um, Boy, I don't know. I'm always on a deal. Like when I do shop around online, and
Mhm.
I might use an aggregator. Like for flights, I'll use Kayak, and then I'll see what airlines are coming up, and then I will go directly to the. I won't go through Kayak, but I actually go in, like, we'll type in Delta or whatnot, or type in the airline's URL to check. For flights, I also check alternative cities. For instance, the closest airport to me where I live, it's actually the Punta Gorda Airport, and people probably haven't heard of Punta Gorda, Punta
Right.
Gorda, Florida. But there's also Sarasota Bradenton International Airport, which is about 45 minutes to an hour north of me. There's the Fort Myers Airport, which is 45 minutes south. There's the Tampa Airport, which is 90 minutes south from me. Well, I can, look if I want to go. I'm fortunate if I'm going to go up to Buffalo to visit my family. I might check Kayak to see what Delta's offering or whatnot. Well, I got a hub through Atlanta, or might check Southwest because they're not in the aggregator and they fly out of Fort Myers and Tampa. But Punta Gorda has Allegiant Air,
Okay.
which is, they specialize in going to like secondary and tertiary cities. So I can take that up to Niagara Falls, which is close enough to Buffalo, and I can usually save some money there. But I also need to price it out, because sometimes it'll be less expensive to take Southwest, because Southwest includes the luggage.
Agreed.
They
Yes, you always
don't.
have to add that
Yes,
on.
yes, they don't have you can pay for assigned seating if you want, but the majority of people, you just make sure you check in early, or check in exactly 24 hours ahead of time, so you don't get stuck in the C zone, so to say. But with Allegiance, they charge you for you're printing out a boarding pass at the airport. They charge you for seat assignment. They charge you now for carry-on luggage. So it's very important that,
Wow.
they take that all into consideration, and taking your mileage and what airport parking is as well. Um,
Exactly.
yeah,
All
there's
of
different
those
factors.
add-ons really they add on to the price tag. So they're an
Hmm.
important consideration when you're booking.
Absolutely. And then also, wherever you're staying for, as a hotel, do they have free breakfast? Some free breakfasts are better than others, so to say, or heartier. I don't consider a donut a breakfast. Some actually do have like real proteins and whatnot, that you can enjoy. Or I adopted a dog a year ago, so now I do a lot of traveling with him in state, or even I've taken him up to Buffalo, and so I look to see what hotel is pet friendly, and I found a specific chain that's pet friendly, and they don't charge a pet deposit or
Nice.
don't have a pet fee, so that's very nice. So I know that saves me as well, in my budget.
That all makes a difference.
Okay.
And I think,
Mhm.
just like in a job, when you look at your paycheck versus your benefits, you're looking at your total compensation package,
Right.
back from my HR days. And
Hmm.
so when you look at your travel costs, you can't just look at one piece of it. You
Right.
really do need to look at the whole comprehensive package and weigh out those details, and then determine, what value you place on some conveniences.
Right. Yeah, because there is conveniences have value as well. I mean, you don't want to put yourself in a scary situation or a dangerous situation, so to say, by staying out at a seedy hotel just because you're saving $10 or $20 or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Nope, that's a very important point, and it's really valid to make sure that people consider all of those different elements when they're putting their travel itineraries together as well.
Hmm. Absolutely.
So, what is coming up next for you in terms of travel?
My goodness. Germany in March, to Berlin. I've never been to Berlin. I've been to other parts of Germany. Actually, I was on a river cruise a couple years ago, I guess now, but I'm heading to Germany in March, and that's pretty much it. I broke my ankle unexpectedly. I guess no one expects to break their ankle,
True statement.
but I had a big road trip planned for this fall, but 2 weeks before I was supposed to take that trip, I broke my ankle. So I was disappointed that happened. So I'll have to see if I can maybe reschedule that. I live, as I mentioned, in Florida, and it was actually going out to the Albuquerque Balloon Fiesta. So
Awesome.
so I had to cancel that. So hopefully I can replan that for next year. But yeah, right now I have Berlin, Germany is on my radar, and then some little trips within Florida. The great thing about Florida is that it is a big tourism destination, and it's more than just beaches and theme parks. So there's lots and lots to explore.
There's a lot to explore. And, also there's a lot of different deals that you have access to being in that area.
Yeah, it's so nice that I have those different airport options. There's really 5 different airports because there's also St. Pete Clearwater as well. So that's nice with making the airlines compete against each other. And if need be, I can drive 3 hours to Miami or 2.5 to 3 hours to Orlando. So I'm excited about that. And I just recently, there's a new section of the local paper who is adding an outdoor living section. So I finalized, I'll be writing little bits about outdoors in Florida for them on a weekly basis too. So I'll be exploring lots more of Florida by myself or with my dog.
Well, that sounds like a great opportunity.
It is, because I do get a lot of women will email me saying they're coming down to Florida and that they're not into theme parks or they're not into spas, and they know that I write a lot about the outdoors, so they're looking for advice on what to do. So I think that's definitely going to help with my blogging and social media, and then for the newspaper.
That's awesome. And what's important too is that we often don't remember how easy it is to travel solo in our own backyard.
Yeah, that's true. There's nothing wrong with a staycation. And I'm still finding exciting things to do in my destination. And even though I've been working in the tourism industry for decades,
Right.
I'm still finding all sorts of treasures, specifically in Southwest Florida. And things changed. Things come and go. And we did have major hurricane in September, Hurricane Irma, that's kind of changed the landscape south of me and whatnot. But everyone's going to come back stronger, and new opportunities, I'm sure, will come out of it, and new
Absolutely.
experiences.
Absolutely. That's amazing. So when you share about the work that you do on your blog, what's your
Hmm.
favorite type of thing to be sharing about? You have stuff that comes up in all sorts of different categories. But if you had
I
to
know.
say, if I had to focus on writing on this particular
Yeah.
category for the next 2 years, what would that be for you and why?
Well, hopefully it's not a fad, but I love my dog. Adopted him a year ago. He's a rescue dog, and he was basically on death row, so to say. And I had no intentions of adopting a dog because I do travel a lot, and everyone was surprised when I adopted one. They're like, "You travel too much. You can't have a dog." And I'm like, "Well, I just saw him on Facebook, and he looked so sweet, and I didn't even meet him in person before I adopted him because I had another trip to go to and stuff
Wow,
like
that's
that."
impressive.
Yeah.
That's commitment.
Yeah. Yeah, and then 6 weeks later, he had problems walking, and it turns out that he has myasthenia gravis, and humans can get it. And basically, there's like 3 different degrees, and I ended up taking him to a pet neurologist who
Wow.
who explained this to me. But basically, like the juice is not connecting to the neurons and whatnot, so he's not in pain. But like when he's trying to think to walk, he just can't. So after lots of medicine and whatnot, he's able to walk. Be a happy dog. So I've been having fun rediscovering destinations with a dog in Florida, or as I mentioned before, I did take him on a road trip up to Buffalo, and he was part of my plan to go out west. And we do have a plan to go somewhere in the Midwest in April. Actually, we're attending a conference, Blog Pause Conference, which is for pet owners.
What?
I know. there's a social media conference for pet owners, and they've been around for several years, and it's finally just clicking that I'll be able to go. So I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to write about pet travel. There are a lot of places that are pet friendly, and there's a lot of places that aren't pet friendly.
Well,
So
and that's what's fascinating is that you're able to really get a better understanding of and appreciation for those types of destinations. And
yeah.
gosh, that could take your writing in a whole different nuance.
Yeah, and what's really exciting, I guess I'll give them a little plug, is that St. Augustine's very dog friendly. They have a train trolley tour that you can take a dog on. You can go to the St. Augustine's, the Fountain of Youth, Ponce de Leon's Fountain of Youth, and actually drink water from the Fountain of Youth, from a cup. And there's a boat tour, and they have a pub crawl where you can bring your dog, and it's I guess they don't drink the beer, but they probably obviously drink water, and the humans can drink beer. But I just think that's fun that some destinations are recognizing how many people are traveling with their pets, and
Absolutely.
It is a little bit of companionship too.
Absolutely. No, I think that's wonderful. If my cat was a better traveler, I'd take him along. He's cranky.
Yeah, cats are that way. But food would be the next thing I would focus on, the culinary aspect. Yeah.
That sounds amazing. Well, I sure have learned a lot. I actually have checked out Pomelo already as we've been talking, and the stories that you have to share about Vietnam and the motorbike and the shuffle. And gosh, I can't believe how quickly our time has gone. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your stories with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Can you make sure to let people know how they can connect with you?
Oh, absolutely. My blog is solotravelgirl.com. You can find me on Twitter at Jennifer Huber. You can find me on Instagram at Jennifer Huber and Solo Travel Girl. And my Facebook page is Solo Travel Girl.
Fantastic. And we will also be posting all of that in the show notes as well, so people can find you in the future.
Thank you so much.
Jennifer, it's been a real pleasure, and I can't wait to see where your travels take you next.
Thank you for having me, Jennifer. I appreciate it. And thank you for everyone for listening.
Wasn't it great to hear the stories that Jennifer shared with us today? I look forward to reading more of her stories of traveling with her pet. If you love these stories and want to help support Go Solo Live, you can do that by making a small financial contribution to the show. There are lots of options with some great gifts of appreciation. Just go to www.patreon.com/GoSoloLive. That's patreon.com. We've reached the end of today's episode, but the conversation doesn't have to end there. Just go to www.transformviatravel.com to join our email list and see what we're up to. Remember, until next time, go solo, not alone.